Hey, it's Drybear. And if you've been following the channel, you know that I am committed to Druid this season, at least the start of it for Season 1, based on the poll that we did in preseason for what our viewers would like to see me work on next. But I still have a special place in my heart for Necromancer, and I do want to help support the people that are playing Necro this season and are making new builds with all the new Malignant Hearts. So I thought I'd provide all the Necromancers out there with a Build-a-Necromancer set of resources that you can use to help theorycraft the builds that you're working on this season, which includes all of my notes and learnings from last season working on Necromancer, including which nodes are available on which boards so you can know where to place your glyphs to get the most out of them, and a blank version of my one sheet so that you can help make your own build based on that format. Well, that's what we're going to go through today. But first, if you're a fan of Diablo 4, you're going to want to hear about today's video sponsor. And that is a giveaway of this one-of-a-kind Diablo 4 inspired, custom-built, 3D printed PC. Skytech Gaming, Intel, and Signal RGB have come together to bring this masterpiece to life. The potions on top actually react to your health and your resource in real time from Diablo. So your computer is going to tell you what your HP, your mana values are going to be inside the game. And it can do this because of the Signal RGB app, which syncs RGB devices from any brand to bring you a cohesive lighting experience. The Skytech team designed and 3D printed this custom PC with performance and cooling in mind, so you don't have to worry about this overheating or not meeting your performance requirements. The chest is hand painted. It's filled with gold that you'd be hunting inside the game anyways. It's got your resources on top and has its own theming. And on top of that, it contains the 13th generation Intel 13600K and the RTX 4070, giving you all the legendary hardcore you need to defeat Uber Lilith, to defeat Uber Varshan, to get to level 100, and to be the best version of your gaming self that you can be. And remember, this is being given away completely for free. All you have to do to enter into the giveaway is to click the link down below in the video description or in the comments so that they know that I sent you, and sign up, enter the giveaway, and see if you are one of the lucky winners. Thanks to Signal RGB for sponsoring this video, and it was a pleasure to even lay eyes on this special PC, and I hope that I'm one of the winners. All right, down below in the description and in the comments, I have linked the public document for my Build-a-Necromancer builder sheet. The first tab at the bottom of this spreadsheet, I have put through just some general notes on how to go through making the builds that you want to make this season, some lessons learned, and some general guidance that may be helpful to you if you're looking for that sort of thing, as well as some resources like Diablo4.cc, where you can view all available stats for every item slot, so you know what item stats you're looking for when you're making the build. Now, the sheet has 4 tabs at the bottom that we'll go through in just a second. That goes through Paragon, glyphs listing, and an empty builder sheet that you can use to make your Necromancer. So what I recommend doing is just going to make a copy, like go to this public sheet, make a copy for yourself, and then you can edit and change as much as you want without having to worry about anyone else seeing it or whatever. You'll have your own personal copy, and you can use these resources to make your Necromancer. Let's go to the first tab, the Paragon tab, and this one is invaluable in being able to make your Necromancer. This one is super, super, super useful. So we'll zoom in so that we can all see it. So what this is every time I work on a class, I'm doing the same thing for Druid, but I went through all of the boards, the Paragon boards. I went to their glyph location, and then I counted every single stat node that existed in that board, so you could know exactly which boards are the most dense for a specific stat. Why is this useful, Drybear? Well, because you know that, say you're looking for an exploit glyph, which scales off of dexterity, you would want to put the exploit glyph for vulnerable damage into the best possible slot so that you can get the most amount of dexterity for that glyph. So by looking at this sheet, you can see that for dexterity, these two are 9 nodes, whereas if you were to put it in like Hulking Monstrosity, it only has 5. So you'd miss out on 4 extra nodes of dexterity, scaling up your vulnerable damage that would just be for free if you put that glyph into a different board. So Bloodbath and Bonegraft are very good for dexterity. For example, as well, if you're looking for a willpower glyph that scales off willpower, you know that Blood Begets Blood and Scent of Death have the highest amount of willpower in their glyph location, And then when it comes to intelligence, nothing beats Flesh Eater. It is the most dense board for intelligence in general. And then you have some ties with the starting board, Cult Leader, and Hulking Monstrosity for those. This is super useful, and I would recommend in the process of creating your build that once you have your skill build built out, and you have all your abilities on your bar, and you go to do your Paragon board planning, I recommend first deciding which glyphs you want. Most endgame builds now in Diablo 4 will utilize either 4, 5, or 6 Paragon glyphs, which means there's 6 boards in there. The difference between those builds usually means that you are trying to either maximize the value you get from glyphs, or there are some specific board values and stats that you can benefit from, that you'd like to spend those extra stats that would normally go to unlocking new boards, instead staying on the same board and unlocking more of those nodes, and that's up to you on how you want to theorycraft your build. So just keep in mind that the 4 glyph builds usually have 1 the starter board, and then 3 boards attached to that, and then they'll have those glyphs there. Most builds are probably between 4 and 5. 5 means you can go up 1, and then you have 3 usually on the outsides, depending on where you go. And then the 6 ones are usually for builds that are a little bit more niche, that don't have as much on the Paragon boards themselves that can scale off of the Paragon stats. And so they add another board with another glyph that might benefit them more, rather than spending those points inside the existing boards. Now the next tab is the Glyphs tab, and this includes every single Necromancer glyph, the bonus that it scales off of, with this is the default, this is this column here, and then the second column is the additional bonus that you get if you meet the requirement that the glyph needs. And this tells you exactly what you need to know. You can sort these A to Z, Z to A, whatever you want. You can sort by the name, you can sort by the stat, you can figure out whatever you want. When you have a copy of this, you can do however you want. So you can see these are the dex glyphs that exist in the Necromancer Paragon board tree. So I recommend picking these here. And then what you can do is you can go to this empty builder that I have. This is the format of my one sheet, updated for season 1. It has the malignant hearts as well as the gems, elixirs, incenses, affixes. You can put little notes in here. And then down here at the bottom, because it's all aligned, you can put in your up to 6 Paragon glyphs that you have here. You can even put extra aspects that you may want to explore, that you want to use in the build, or maybe options for you that you can mess around and play with. And the way this is formatted right now is that it is just your character paper doll. It has the helm slot, the aspect that you have in it, and then the 4 stats that come with it when it's ancestral and upgraded. Same thing goes for amulet, chest, ring, gloves, ring, second ring. And then I put all of the ones that have implicit stats on them, or inherent stats as Diablo calls them, here next to each other, because they'll have an extra row. So for pants, boots, offhand, and weapon, they all have a passive implicit that they will carry with them depending on what kind they are. Boots is like multiple evades, attacks reset evade, or movement speed after evade. And then you have your 4 stat slots for ancestral items and world tier 4 items that scale up that way as well. And so what you would do is say, I want aspect of might on my helm here, and I want % total armor, and I want maximum health, and I want % cooldown reduction, and I want lucky hit chance with a barrier, right? So this is what I would do when going through and making these builds. So I say, okay, when I get an item drop that's a helm, I'm looking for these items that are super important to my build. And you can also put your malignant hearts over here and swap up these. Remember, you can have multiple of the same kind, and you can have those listed here. And then I also have an extra color for unique items that have that. Remember, they have fixed stats on them, and those legendaries there. Now, the next thing I want to highlight for you is something that not everyone knows, especially if they're just getting into making builds for their character. But not only does the glyph that you put into the board matter, and the order in which you go through and put the nodes, but the order in which you unlock the boards matter as well. And as you can see here on sites like d4builds.gg, it was one of my favorites, it has the number next to the board. And the reason that's important is because as you go through and you add these boards in a specific order and you start unlocking them and putting points into them, you can see that this one is now 2, this one is now 3, and this one is now 4. The reason that's important is because the passive additional bonuses that you have on rare nodes. You see, while it says 160 dexterity and you'll get 100 more armor, 170 more willpower, and you'll get 10% more damage. Those, the stat requirements to meet those go up the further away the board gets from the starting board. So when we go up to our first board after the first, the minimum requirement for this is 170 or 160. Then it jumps up to 270, 260, 260, 350. When we go to our third board, it's 350, 360, 480. When we go to our fourth board, it becomes 610, 440, 610. So when you're planning out your board, what I like to do when I first start making a Paragon build is I'll figure out what glyphs I want in there. And then I'll go to that part of the sheet that shows which boards have the highest density of stats, so I can make sure I'm maximizing those glyphs. Then I'll figure out what boards need to be placed and then what order they need to be in. And you do this by looking at the board and saying, okay, do I want 17% skeletal warrior damage, or is that something that I can pass on, right? So for example, if you're adding in something like Bloodbath in order to put the exploit glyph into it, which is great for vulnerable damage, if you're not doing a blood build, you may not need any of these passives, which means that the Bloodbath board, which you're using just for its density of dexterity, you can put it last because you're not trying to get these passives on your rare nodes. So you can kind of put that last and get that there. But then you want to put probably your two best boards first. Your second and third board would be your best boards, the stats that you want to max out the easiest by the stats that you've collected. And then as you go through, that's what you unlock. So you not only do you need to figure out the glyphs, but also the order of the boards. And that's usually what I'll do is I'll figure out what glyphs I want, the order of the boards that I need, and the boards that I need total. And then I'll lay them out in a way that makes sense to me. And this is where I'll start my Paragon. I have my glyphs placed. I know what glyphs I want. They're placed in the right board to get the most benefit that they can get based on what nodes are available around that glyph location, which is fixed. And then you also place them in an order that makes sense. And then once you have it, then when I have this skeleton, that's when I go through and say, okay, now I'm going to go through and I'm going to place all my stats. I know that this thing needs a lot of intelligence, so I'm going to grab all this intelligence here. Remember that for any class, the rare nodes will always have a high density of your primary stat. So for Necromancer, your main stat is intelligence. So every rare node in Paragon will always have 10 intelligence. So if you're running something that requires intelligence, that scales with intelligence, like the control glyph, make sure you get the rare nodes if you can, because those will give you a big load of intelligence. And then you're just going through and spending your points this way and creating that, and then you're figuring out what you want. And I recommend also using builders like these online first so that you don't waste your gold in game respecking a bunch, because it is quite expensive, even with the nerf that's coming. Then once you have your Paragon and skill tree figured out and everything's placed and you're ready to go, this is when I would like to kind of start working in doing my gear. There's many different resources that you can use for determining what gear you want to use, but I like using Diablo 4.cc because it is a complete database. It's not limited to things. It just shows everything, so I can pick from everything and make the gear stats that I'm looking for, which looks like this. And it really is just a data repository for Diablo 4. But what I want to direct you to is the equipment and weapons and gear that's down here. So if you look at equipment, you have amulet, boots, chest armor, gloves, helm, pants, ring, all of the weapons and offhands that you would be looking for. So for example, let's click on amulet. Amulet loads up, it shows all the amulets, and then up here at the top, the tabs, the second tab is the one you want, because this shows all the amulets that exist in the game. But the next tab is amulet affixes, and this is what you're looking for. You click amulet affix, and this will show you every single affix that possibly can roll on an amulet in the entire game. And so what I'll do is I'll come through and say, oh, Hellbent Commander can roll on amulet, and then I'm running a minion build that likes to have that scaling. So I'm going to go ahead and mark down on my sheet that I want Hellbent Commander on my amulet, or I'm looking for minion attack speed, or I'm looking for something that might give me damage reduction or cooldown reduction, those sorts of things. And that's how I go through and plan out the builder that I have in that sheet, which there's many ways to do it, and you're welcome to do whatever you want, but I wanted to at least pass on what I had been doing so that if anyone is looking for a little bit of guidance or a nudge in the right direction, they have at least the tools to do so. So you'll find this document down below in the description as well as in the comments. It's a public document. You can grab it, make a copy of it, and go to town making all of your builds. For Necromancer, you can sort everything. It's all fixed. So you can just kind of figure out, okay, what do I want? I want intelligence, I want willpower. All this is sortable. So you can figure out what these are, figure out your boards, make your builders online. And if you're really lost, I have a step-by-step process here with some notes and guidance on the first tab that might help get you started. So hopefully this helps you if you're playing Necromancer this season and you're messing around with all the new malignant hearts is there and all the powers and everything that goes on in there. And hopefully this helps you make a better Necromancer in the end. And I hope you have a great season. If you found value in the video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people. And I'll see you on my live stream. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.